came to San Francisco and I moved into the Haight-Ashbury, there was nothing there. And then one day I saw this new shop called the Psychedelic Shop. And that was the first overt clue that something was happening in that neighborhood that was of a countercultural aspect.
By 65, 66, you have this community that has its own hip stores and merchants, and the psychedelic philosophy.
Look around you, nothing works. The only thing the kid is presented with is when you grow up, look, you can join the army, you can go to war, you can get a gig working as an engineer, become a vegetable, and drive to work in your own car, your own big metal box. And, just, it looks absurd. People in their metal boxes like this going all over from job to job, frustrated, uptight. What joy is there in life? Life is and should be ecstasy.
There's a pretty young lady right there.
1965, and I went to San Francisco. It was exciting because there was music coming from windows and people that you could, stop and talk to that you didn't know, you'd never met before. And it was just that sort of breakdown of all the sort of constraints of people getting together.
It was real. You talk to anyone who was there at the time, and the thing that strikes you about it is the sincerity of it. It existed. They took care of each other. You have the diggers, this core group of community activists creating these community-wide psychedelic events and happenings and experiences. If you needed clothes, you walked into the digger-free store and could pick out something you wanted. It was like Nirvana.
There's a group called the Diggers, who were basically improv actors who had gotten really into the Haight-Ashbury. They did all these theatrical things which were intended to turn people into little centers of anarchist activism.
We didn't want to be communists, we didn't want to be capitalists, they were not going to let us live authentically. We wanted to be who we were and then create a culture which would have space for us. Drugs factor into this in a couple ways. Acid so wipes out your preconditioning that for people like us, it seemed like a way to make sure that we were not just thinking within the box and recombinating the pieces.
Every afternoon at 4, hungry hippies begin to congregate in the Panhandle. They are waiting for the arrival of the Diggers, a hippie subgroup who show up at this time with a station wagon full of food, which is given free to anyone who wants it.
We just wanted to change the frame of reference to say, it's free, it's yours. What are you going to do with it? We were trying to take people to relook at their life without their personal history. Dylan named it in Like a Rolling Stone. How does it feel to be on your own, like a complete unknown with no direction home, like a rolling stone? Everybody knew what he meant, so that the hate itself became a stage for people to invent themselves, to act out the role of their own hero. We used to say, don't be lonesome for your heroes. Be your own hero.
About Haight-Ashbury, we see nice little Victorian houses in huge places, and you get 10 people in a place, and all these people from all over were loving this stuff, the Hells Angels and the Diggers, and the guys in the Beat generation, Allen Ginsberg and all those kind of guys, in and out, the whole scene was alive. The things that happened in our house, there was endless numbers of things.
I was looking for a house one time, and my realtor, who was related to somebody in the dead, invited me to this party, and she said, but don't come unless you're willing to be dosed. It's like the acid and the squirt guns, the people who could hit your Dixie cup from 20 feet, But it's an art form.
This is the house of a popular local band which plays hard rock music. They call themselves the Grateful Dead.
What we're thinking about is a peaceful planet. We're not thinking about anything else. We're not thinking about any kind of power. We're not thinking about any of those kind of struggles. We're not thinking about revolution or war or any of that. That's not what we want. Nobody wants to get hurt. Nobody wants to hurt anybody. We would all like to be able to live an uncluttered life, a simple life, a good life, you know, and like think about moving the whole human race ahead a step or a few steps.
Do you think that your movement or your idea, the hip idea, is essentially connected up with drugs?
Yeah, I would say that's a large part of the framework. I think most of the people who are hippies now came to it through drugs.
Yeah, but it's not a dope movement. We're not trying to spread dope.
I think, personally, that the more people turn on, the better world it's going to be.
What happened in Haight-Ashbury had a lot to do with the fact that in the San Francisco Bay Area, there was already a tradition of taking psychedelics. There were some people who actually made some, but they were always thinking small. They were always thinking, basically, I don't want to get busted. In the spring of 1964, I was living in a weird little rooming house in Berkeley, and this guy named Owsley Stanley moved in. He was a very extraordinary guy. He had paintings. He was a ballet dancer. He had a complete beekeeping costume. He was also a trained blacksmith. He was different from a lot of the other people who got into psychedelics who said, "Boy, you can make this stuff, that would be cool." Owsley's way of thinking was to do things boldly. So he just went out there and bought raw lysergic acid in large quantities. Huge quantities. Made several million doses of LSD. So the San Francisco scene became basically the biggest LSD party in history.
This hippie girl may be giving people free doses of LSD. The word on the street is that Owsley Stanley is the entrepreneur who is responsible for this. Needless to say, he keeps a low profile and does not like to have his picture taken. Here he is, the Acid King. Owsley Acid has helped make Haight-Ashbury the LSD capital of the world.
The largest manufacturer of LSD in the country. They passed 3 separate laws against what he was doing. They were actually known as the Owsley laws.
LSD was declared illegal in October of 1966. 3 months later, you have a major psychedelic event in San Francisco. The first human being, the gathering of the tribes. 30,000 people streaming into Golden Gate Park on a beautiful day. All of them taking acid.
Turn on, tune in, drop out.
It was astounding to see all of ourselves. It must be like a Jew going to Israel for the first time, and suddenly you're inside. Instead of being an outsider, everyone's like you.
I remember imagining that I was part of a gathering of Viking princes.
The diggers were handing out LSD by a shovelful. Allen Ginsberg was probably doing Shiva chant, but we couldn't tell. We were all just there, stoned out of our gourds on acid.
It's not even like today where you pay $40 and you go to a rock and roll show and you watch somebody acting out canned rebellion. Like everyone else, it confirmed my instinct that something was going on. We weren't just imagining it.